my video stopped recording, but I'm on here and I'm gonna talk about continue possibly and continue the monologue where all I'm saying is, you know, these sporadic random things are constantly happening where it does not provide me the chance to stop, to be able to just get my shit together. Like, I don't get that opportunity, and everyone wants to try to convince me that that I can stop, that if I just stop and go apply at the warehouse and get a part-time job flipping burgers and do little side stuff, the stuff that I always done, they're trying to tell me to go back to what I always did and do the things that that got me here in the first place, right? Look at those ferocious beasts. Anyways, yeah, everybody's trying to tell me to do the very things that got me in the crummy situations to begin with. Okay, done with the horse. You can see some horses right there to your left. But if I zoom in, they go out of screen. Unless I put it that way. Yeah. Getting back on it, I done dropped off the grain. So, hadn't even had a sip of my coffee yet. Isn't that crazy? So anyways, time to head back. Sorry about the sip. I think it's Rudy that doesn't like the sip. But anyways, time to get rolling. All right. Anyways, so getting back on it. But yeah, I hate to sound like I'm repeating myself, because, you know, I kind of forget sometimes. I try to hold my thoughts, but then I forget when I start recording again. But basically, all right. But basically, this is a perfect example. Like, you know, things constantly happening before I get a chance to. If y'all want to see an old slave house, this is the southeast in the Carolina, so there it is. That's what I heard. I heard that was an old slave house. I think I've shown it before. You know, slavery has been throughout all time. Everybody's been enslaved. Now, some people might say, well, what are you trying to say? Yeah, I get it. I get it. What are you trying to say? Everybody's been enslaved. I'm not trying to justify it. I don't think it's cool. I think it's wrong throughout any time in history. But just saying. So, moving. But yeah, so just the fact that an example, like in my mind, I'm thinking I got till May 1st. It gives me some more time to plan. I can focus on making money. Look at that hole in that tree. It looks like a heart. That's wild. And that's a natural hole. Dang. So anyways, so I thought, well, maybe, you know, this month I'll focus on making as much money as I can. And then at the beginning of April, I will focus on moving and making money, but mostly moving. But now, just out of nowhere, just a few days ago, everything changed. And so now I'm immediately focused on moving, and even though I need to make money. It's always random, sporadic, out of nowhere, the life circumstances. And that's just one example. Now, and then you get tons of them thrown onto you all at once. And then there's little micro circumstances that are happening all around you. And this is like just last week. You know, I had not planned on buying new tires. I knew at some point I needed it. I put it on my back in last August, whenever I did my quarterly review of my circumstance and wrote everything down and wrote down all the goals, and, you know, and put that into perspective just to get my mind clear on everything. Well, virtually nothing has changed, really. So October, November, December happened, right? And I like I said before, I write these things down. I write out my stuff usually every quarter to every 6 months. And so this January or into December, I did not do my my quarterly overview and planning. And the reason why I did not do it is because nothing changed about my circumstance. Nothing changed to merit me trying to like spend a day, because usually I'll spend the entire day. I'll map out stuff. I'll write everything down. I'll write down the current circumstance. I'll write out how much money I need to make. I'll write down how much repairs I need to do. I'll plan it all out, you know, and get my mind clear and all that stuff. And it just wasn't necessary because nothing changed. But anyways, to get my kind of lost my train of thought there, my bad. Oh yeah. So I realized I needed to get my tires. I went to take some garbage to the dump for a customer, and I looked down at my tires, and there was they were treaded down on the edges. They were treaded down to where the tread was no longer there. And I knew I needed to do it, but I hadn't even been looking at the tires, which I should have been. You know, I'm mindful of this stuff. Well, in that moment I did, but I noticed that the front tire on the driver's side had a huge gash. Had a huge gash, as if somebody took like a wood carving tool and scraped it like about 1/4 of an inch wide and scraped it along the tire, and a chunk of it was still like 3 inches of that where it scraped over. It was just dangling there, like a strip of rubber was just like 1/4 of an inch long strip of rubber, and then a huge gash that went around the whole tire was there. I was like, this thing's gonna pop any moment now. And so I immediately had to go get two new tires, right? And it's just an example of just things happening semi out of nowhere. I mean, I was aware that I was going to need new tires at some point, and I wrote it down in my book, but and I guess it had been longer than I thought that I had looked at my tires, right? And then so next month or the month after, I'm gonna have to get more tires, right? So if I was working at the warehouse and at Wendy's, I would lose the flexibility I have to navigate this circumstance, this chronic circumstance. I'd have the ability to, I would lose my ability to have the flexibility that I do have. When I have the flexibility, it gives me more leverage because I have access to things when I need it. And I like how people will try to say, well, you know, if you need something like at your job, you know, at the warehouse, just ask them for a day off, or just ask them if you can leave at this time or that time. And that someone that would say that is someone that has lived a pretty easy life, because they're not used to suffering consequences for having to take care of regular life things. Things are kind of already there, placed for them. So what they end up doing is they can't conceive, like because they have a certain level of socioeconomic status. When they take some time off to do something, it's because they really needed to get that done, or you know, I understand sometimes you got to get things done, and sometimes you got to take time off of work. But if you're someone like in my position and you're the poor guy, right? You're known as the poor guy, the guy that's always struggling, then it must be something that you've neglected. So let us warn you, like, you know, you better, you know, be on your A game when it comes to life circumstances. You know, take responsibility, pal. You know, there's got to be a reason why you need all this time off all the time. Flat tire? Well, you should have had a spare. You know, all this stuff, you know, and it's everybody. And you know what? Actually, come to think of it, all those little tropes and platitudes and the things people spout off, it's actually true. What they're saying is actually true. Under their specific circumstances, life circumstances. In their situation, what they are saying is actually true, because if you already have leverage and you've already had everything, or if you've been handed everything, or if you just have a relatively normal life, life is just kind of relatively normal, it makes sense under those circumstances. So people are going to constantly project that onto me. They're going to so just now, you might have caught it on video, I don't know if you saw it, there's some kids out here throwing balls, playing basketball, and that's why it's important to be very mindful of when you're driving, because I saw the ball rolling towards the street, but it was within the gap of that dumpster and that building thing. And because I was paying attention to the details of my surroundings, I noticed that ball. I noticed a kid chasing that ball toward the street, but they got it before it rolled into the street. But still, that little micro detail, and that's one of the reasons why I get distracted, especially when I'm driving like this and I'm talking and recording. I'm mostly trying to pay attention to the road. So yeah, that kind of stern talk would apply to someone who's been handed everything, but it doesn't apply to me. But the people don't know that, you know. They project out their, you know, perceptions and what they believe should be the way things go onto you, right? And there's also this whole idea of work hard, you know, like as a moral quality. The whole idea of like working hard is like this moral quality and it's the right thing to do. You know that comes from Christianity. It comes from Protestant Christianity. And I forget, but I was watching something on it. You can actually look it up. You know, look up Christianity and work ethic, and Christianity and the morality of hard work. You will see that historically it stems from modern Protestantism. So, or not even modern Protestantism, it stems from Protestantism itself. And it's this idea that God rewards people that do their due diligence and works hard. So they set up a system. So a system is set up to where like the modern system, where all these businesses exist that men own, and it was planned out this way, where as I've always talked about, and I've always worded it this way, these businesses are perceived as authorities. They're perceived as like authorities that have the jobs in the society, like that. That's how it's perceived. That's how it's not worded like that directly, but that's the underpinning, the subtext of how everything operates. Like all these businesses are authorities, and nobody words it the way I do, which is all these businesses, all these companies, quote unquote companies, are just merely your peers. And I often say that, like, the guy that you sat with in second grade, when you go to apply to go work at a company, you're basically just working for one of your peers. You know, you're working for that guy that sat next to you in second grade. Like, he didn't go out and get a job. He didn't say to himself, let me go out and get a good job. He said to himself, I'm going to start a company. I'm going to start a business. And then his peers, his classmates, they graduated college and they said, well, time for me to go get my good job. Let me start applying at places. And they don't realize that they're just working for one of their peers. There's a difference. There's you either work for yourself or you work for one of your peers. That's it. A small percentage of people decide to start the businesses, and then a majority of the people go and work the businesses for them, right? Because they need help running those businesses. And so that's where it's sold to you that is the American dream. They teach you the American dream is to get the house payment, the wife, the kids, and the job, and now you're happy. And that's the formula, the ingredient, that's how you find your happiness. Once you have that, you're happy. See? You got the job. But really, it's almost like it's a sneaky way to trick people into working for their companies, right? It's almost like a sneaky way to say, hey, see here's the happy. It's a sneaky way to trick people and to say, hey, get your good job. Look, the Exxon is hiring. The Exxon car wash over there is hiring. Could get you a good position there and become management, because that's an authority, right? But most people don't see it, that it's just one of their peers' businesses. And that's the lie. That's kind of like, it's a half truth, half lie kind of scenario. That's why I can't just directly, not yet anyway, I have yet to figure out the words to make it concise and plain and simple, right? Because it is kind of left in the realm of ambiguity. Although someone more educated and astute at language, doesn't that sound kind of contradictory to how I'm talking? Someone more astute with the talent, skill, and ability to form words may be able to word all that I'm attempting to say in a way that makes it to where my point is more easily comprehensible. And I wish I could dumb that down, to be honest with you. I wish that I could just like word that right now. Maybe I can, but like off the top of my head, that is the language that's in my head, right? That's the language that my mind, that's the language that my mind, conveys. So, or that's the language that my mind conjures up. That's the spells that come out of my magical mouth. So yeah. So it is a trick. So while it is true, it is a company. It is a corporation. And they are hiring, and they have a job for you. They have a job there for you to go offer your labor at, your time. It is true. Simultaneously, it's not true. It's not real. It's an illusion. The Walgreens, the Food Lion back there, this car lot. See this car lot? That's some man's business. The whole idea that there's such thing as a mom and pop versus a corporation is an illusion. That's not real. That mom and pop is the same as the big corporation, right? It's literally the same. That guy that started that car lot, I know I've exhausted this point. But that car lot back there, the guy that started that car lot, I mean, he may have another business. He may have a small retail shop downtown where he sells something. And he has his car lot right there. But he's just some guy that decided to take some money and buy cars and sell them. That's it. And that is no different than Firehouse Subs up here on the right. It's just a different model, a different structure, and someone that has a bigger budget to work with. Anything that's corporate appears corporate simply and only because they have a bigger budget to work with and they can make their business appear more polished. The guy that I've talked about before who opened up a coffee shop back in 2018, he just opened up his 12th location. If you would have walked into his first location when it first opened, when there was not the other locations, you would have never walked into that coffee shop and said to yourself, oh, this is a mom and pop coffee shop. You would have walked into there and would have been like, oh, this is a corporation. I wonder how many locations this corporation has. You would have thought that it was a corporate place because all the signage, the lettering, the decor, the way they operated their systems appeared and looked quote unquote corporate, and still does to this day. If you would have taken the average layman into that coffee shop when it first started and said, what kind of place is this? And they would have been like, coffee shop. No, well, what kind of business is it? And they would have like fumbled with their words. They'd be like, what do you mean, what kind of business is it? You know, it's... Then you would have to lead them through the thought processes, and you'd have to say, well, is it a corporation? And most people would have been like, well, look at it. It's a corporation. It looks, and then they'd be like, well, it looks corporate, you know. It doesn't look like a mom and pop, when in reality, it was a mom and pop. So my point is, the illusion of the mom and pop is just a matter of how much money that business has to put into the optics. So the reason why that coffee shop was able to do so well from the jump, right from the start, practically right from the start. Now, I think he did spend like a year inside of a small 8x6 or 10x12 building. Like he literally rented it was right adjacent to the coffee shop in the same strip. Little small building, and the only thing he had was like a counter, and no seating. You just walk in and you have to like physically purchase your coffee. He just like had a machine. He brewed the beans. He roasted the beans, and then he brewed the coffee, and then he pours you a coffee, and then you leave. That's it. That was it. No coffee drinks. Well, I don't think he had coffee drinks in the beginning. I think he just had like just drip coffee. And so he sold it. So he sold it just like that. And then the way he started going around town to businesses, telling them, hey, we do parties and catering. He must have had an oven to bake with. But even then, even with the roaster and the oven, the ability to bake and all that stuff to cater parties or office meetings and stuff, even that was a small chunk of change. But 1 year later, when he had that enormous corporate looking coffee shop, probably I wouldn't be surprised if $1 million went into that. And he didn't have it. I highly don't think he had it, but somebody put money into it. So that means he probably got several investors, because they seen that he was a young man aspiring to do a business, and he had that confidence, and he had that lack of surface level anyway, appearing to lack insecurity, like confident, like a young man just starting out in life, already on the grind. He's been a manager at 2 businesses, and that's the way he was perceived. And he also come from a very Baptist, which is huge around here, like a Baptist community and culture. He's that slightly eccentric guy, slightly like he had a little mix optically, and he does have this, don't get me wrong, he does have these things, but if he didn't, he could easily fake it. But he's got ambition, youth, slight bit of eccentricity, charisma, and so just that perceived image that he just naturally is able to convey because he's already stable in life, he's already good, like nothing bad's happening, technically everything's all good. He is able to just walk in and say, hey guys, I want to start my coffee shop, and then these guys with big money are going to invest because they trust that aura, and I'm almost to my destination, so I'm gonna have to cut the video, but that's how he was able to get funded, him and his business partners. I guarantee you it's just local business people and local high ups in the community with being a Christian, being that way around here, this area, like that's that kind of thing. Like you just walk, it's almost nearly like you wake up, you become an adult one day, you get your good job, and then the world's going to open up for you. All you just got to do is present yourself and say, hey, I'm willing to do this, and all the people with the money go, oh yeah, you're awesome. Opposite of, even if I tried to project that aura, even though I am technically charismatic and ambitious myself, it's all about optics. Nobody ever, even though I worked the jobs most people want, and I'm a hard worker, and I'm intelligent and smart, like that never happened to me whenever I tried to pitch things, because I didn't have those other pre-existing qualities and circumstances to be in my favor for it all to work out. But yeah, that's how that place got to look corporate. It's a lie. Corporations, there's no such thing. That's all I got to say about it. So, we'll talk to you in the next one.